Shalom and shalom, brothers. In today's video, we are going to be going over the lie of Saint Maurice and how the Caucasian uses Saint Maurice as a scapegoat and as a proxy to explain away all the different knights of Europe. So we're going to analyze the Saint Maurice legend, where it came from, is it fact, is it fiction, where did it start, so on and so forth. So brothers, as usual, please help a brother out, subscribe, like the videos, and with all of that being said, let's get straight into it. So from the Real History WW, it reads, "It should be remembered that the following are all explanations conjured up by the albinos. Thus, the expectation for truth is necessarily limited." Now, as you can see, this person who runs the website, he uses the term albinos for the Caucasians. Now, I don't know if this person knows who the Caucasian is in the Bible, but I know that he knows that the Israelites of the Bible are so-called black people because he has all the artifacts and relics on this website. So I don't know what his full understanding or belief that he has in the Bible. But the reason why I'm highlighting the albinos is because a lot of people think that the Caucasians come from like fallen angels or they come from Japheth, so on and so forth. What you have to understand is that the Caucasian has mingled his seed with all nations, or I should say, he takes on the identity of the people of the lands that he takes over. This is why there's so much confusion. So brothers, what you were looking at on your screen are ancient Greeks. Yes, the ancient Greeks before Alexander the Macedonian were so-called dark-skinned people, dark-fleshed people. But you see what the Caucasian will do? When artifacts like these make mainstream media, he will sit there and tell you that these images that you're looking at on your screen are black African slaves in Greece. Whenever you see statues like this found around the world, brothers, understand those statues are a representation of the indigenous and aboriginal population of those regions. For example, if you see an artifact or a statue of a black man in China that's from like 10,000 years ago or something, he will sit there and tell you that that is just a black African who visited China, or it's a black African slave that was in China. No, that artifact is showing you what the ancient population looked like during that time period. You understand, brothers? Once again, black equals aboriginal and indigenous to this planet. Ham, Shem, and Japheth were all so-called black men. But you see, the confusion lies because the Caucasian adds in his pseudoscience and his Darwinism. For example, he would tell you that Japheth would be like the Mongoloids and the Caucasians. All black people are Hamites, and Shem, that would be a mixture of Caucasians and the modern day Arab-looking Turks. All of that is narrative, and that's their way of injecting themselves into history. So now we're going to read in the book of First Maccabees how they take on the identity of the Greeks. So it reads, "And it happened after that Alexander, the son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Chittim, had smitten Darius, king of the Persians and Medes, that he reigned in his stead the first over Greece, and made many wars, and won many strongholds, and slew the kings of the earth, and went through the ends of the earth, and took spoils of many nations, insomuch that the earth was quiet before him, whereupon he was exalted, and his heart was lifted up. And he gathered a mighty strong host, and ruled over countries, and nations, and kings, who became tributaries unto him. And after these things he fell sick, and perceived that he should die. Wherefore he called his servants, such as were honourable, and had been brought up with him from his youth, and parted his kingdom among them while he was yet alive. So Alexander reigned 12 years, and then died. and his servants bear rule, every one in his place. And after his death, they all put crowns upon themselves. So did their sons after them many years, and evils were multiplied in the earth. And there came out of them a wicked root, Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes, son of Antiochus, the king, who had been a hostage at Rome, and he reigned in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks. Now you see, this is how they became Greeks. They are not the original Greeks. They took over that region through Alexander the Macedonian. And this just goes to show you the Bible is not a fairy tale. We know that Alexander the Macedonian was a real person. We know this history through secular history. But this is why they don't want certain books in the Bible to be shown, because this paragraph right here shows you the history of Alexander and his generals. The whole book of Maccabees. So I just want to touch on Ptolemy a quick second. So it reads, Ptolemy was a companion and historian of Alexander the Great of the kingdom of Macedon in northern Greece, who became the ruler of Egypt, part of Alexander's former empire. And you see, this is how they also became the Egyptians through Ptolemy. But this is how the Caucasian manipulates numbers. He's only going to show you images of where the Caucasian was in rulership over Egypt through Ptolemy. And there are going to be certain artifacts of the Caucasians in high-ranking positions in Egypt during the time of Ptolemy, but he will tell you and manipulate numbers, and he would tell you that those artifacts are from like 100,000 years ago, or he would tell you those artifacts were from the time of the Exodus with Moses. This is how they fumble with stats and numbers. So back to Saint Maurice. So brothers, I'm going to be doing a video down the line titled Serfs, Villains, Slavs, the Wood Walls and the Wild Men, where I talk about the conditions that the Caucasian was in and how so-called black people gained back rulership during the early 100 ADs, and how they drove the Caucasians back to the Caucasus Mountains, and for those that they didn't drive to the Caucasus Mountains, they kept as slaves. So be on the lookout for that video. So back to Saint Maurice. Oh, and just a small disclaimer. Within the next 5 minutes, I'm going to be butchering a lot of words, because I know some of these words do not sound like they are spelt. It's like the whole thing with Michelangelo. It's actually pronounced Michelangelo in an Italian dialect. So that's just a small disclaimer. Words will be butchered in the next 5 minutes of this video. But let's get straight to it. So, the legend of Saint Maurice, Encyclopedia Britannica. Saint Maurice allegedly died 286 AD. Was a Christian soldier whose alleged martyrdom with his comrades inspired a cult practiced today. Among those martyred with him were the SS Vitalis, Candidus, and Experius. He is the patron saint of the Vatican's Swiss Guard. Their story was recorded in the Passio Martyrum Acunensium, the Passion of the Martyrs of Agunum, by the 5th century French bishop Eutychius, or Eucherius, however it's pronounced, who believed that the Theban Legion was a group of Egyptian Christians serving in the Roman army under the command of Maurice, Latin Mauritius. Ironically, they were sent by Maximin, later Roman emperor, to help quash a revolt of Christian peasants in Gaul. The legion met with Maximin at Octodurum, now Martigny, Swiss, but they refused to fight against their brethren and withdrew in protest at Agunum. There, Maximin twice had 1 man in 10 executed, and finally the entire group was put to death. So that is the alleged official story of Saint Maurice and where it all started. So now we're going to read some information from some scholars and historians about the validity of Saint Maurice. The earliest surviving evidence for Saint Maurice consists of a letter written during the 5th century. It names the late 14th century bishop Theodore of Octodurum as the discoverer of the relics of Saint Maurice and his companions. The fact that Saint Maurice is said to have belonged to the legion called the Thebae, which really was stationed in northern Italy by the early 5th century, at latest suggests that Theodore invented the story of Saint Maurice in order to appeal to this legion for some reason. One possibility is that he had been trying to persuade it not to accept the usurper Eugenius as the new emperor in 392. The earliest account of martyrdom of Maurice and the Theban legion occurs in a letter addressed by Eucherius or Carius, however it's pronounced, bishop of Lynos, to a fellow bishop Salvius. This relatively brief document has attracted a degree of scholarly attention out of all proportion to its length, the purpose of which has been to investigate its historical basis. There are those who believe with varying degrees of certainty that the historical basis to the story which Eucherius relates that there did not indeed exist a group of Theban soldiers who were executed in the Alps during the early years of the reign of the Emperor Herculius Maximin, because they refused, for religious reasons, to obey his commands. However, the argument has left many unconvinced. Dennis von Bercham's thorough examination of the story has raised many doubts of its veracity, and many commentators now incline to believe with him that no such martyrs ever existed. The main arguments against the veracity of the tale preserved by Eucherius may be summarized as follows. It contradicts the historical sequence of events. In reality, Christians were expelled from the army several years before the general's persecution of Christians broke out in February 303, probably as early as 298. This sequence of events seems to have been planned precisely in order to avoid the scenario depicted here, the refusal of soldiers to obey orders to persecute their fellow Christians. Although the text claims that Maximin twice ordered the decimation of the legion, the execution of every 10th man, this practice has ceased long before he rose to the throne. Although the opposition to military service by the Constantinian Church has often been overstated, and some Christians did indeed serve in the army, the evidence of such writers as Tertullian and Lactantius confirms nevertheless that the majority of Christians were opposed to military service, whatever their exact reason, to the extent, therefore, that the story of Saint Maurice and the Theban legion seemed to accept military service and the notion of justifiable homicide. It betrays its author's acceptance of a view which did not dominate within the church until the very late 4th century. Van Bercham realized that it was not enough simply to dismiss the story of Saint Maurice and the Theban legion as fiction. One must also account in a more positive fashion for the origin of this fiction. This is a more difficult task, and here Van Bercham was not entirely convincing. He concluded that the legend of the Eastern military martyr named Maurice of Apamea was conflated with local traditions concerning a campaign by Maximin against rebels in Gaul, and that from the confusion there arose the story of Saint Maurice and the Theban legion. It is my It is my intention here to provide an alternative hypothesis to explain Maurice of Agunum in the terms of other the in terms other than translation to the Alps of the cult of Saint Maurice of Apamea. Basically, what he's saying is that there was a lot of folklore during that time period, and that's how the Saint Maurice came about through the amalgamation of the different folklore. But just to wrap everything up, brothers, and just to summarize it, just to give you the easy rundown, Saint Maurice is a proxy that the Caucasian used to try and explain away all the black knights of Europe. That's what it comes down to ultimately. As I'm sure you brothers already know, they take all the different knights of the Holy Roman Empire of Europe and other different factions, and they're going to say that all of them are Saint Maurice because they don't want you to know that so-called black people ruled Europe and black people were the original knights. So now what you are looking at are knights of the Order of the Garter, and specifically to the left is King Edward III, and to the right is Henry Duke of Lancaster. But as you can see within the image, specifically on their faces, you can see it has that like black and brown smudge effect. As you can see, they've tried to whitenize their faces. But just looking to the left of King Edward III, you can just tell that that was a so-called black man. No amount of whitewashing can change that dude's features, unless they completely remodel this image. But we're going to read on the top the little excerpt the Real History WW has provided for us. So it reads, but not surprisingly, there is great evidence that medieval blacks did not allow albinos to be knights. This assertion is supported by the fact that there are no authentic images, or very few, if any, authentic images of white knights. Even in cases like below, which appears to show a white Duke of Lancaster, but the fact is that owing to the destruction of 97% of Britain's artifacts by Thomas Cromwell, the British Library has thousands of fake, aged looking, illuminated manuscripts. There is no way for us to tell which are real, if any, and which are fake. The fact that the race of the depicted knights is so ambiguously strong suggests that the manuscript is a fake. Now we're going to look at the different statues and paintings of the different black knights of Europe. So what you're looking at on your screen, this is a statue located at the Magdeburg Cathedral, and as usual is titled Saint Maurice, allegedly. So now for this statue, we're going to read the little excerpt we got from blackcentraleurope.com. So in 1987, the East German government undertook an ambitious residential development known as Brunoswart in the historic city centre of the nearby city of Halle. This project built is the most modern materials integrated housing with shops and garden and adorned the area with impressive artistic projects. One of the works is a statue by Christopher Weahy that depicts Saint Maurice, allegedly Saint Maurice, carrying his spear and mounted on a horse. This complex is located right around the corner from Halle's Morti Kirichi. However the heck you pronounce that word, a late Gothic church dedicated to Magdeburg's patron saint. So I'm almost positively sure a lot of you brothers have seen this image before. This is one of the most famous images they love to use for Saint Maurice. But look how this brother is decked out. As you can see, he has the large looking fedora, all decked and styled out. He's wearing a full suit of armor embroidered with gold. Around his neck, as you can see, is a necklace with a golden pendant, with look like a red ruby inside of it. He's holding the flag of the Holy Roman Empire, and he has a pure gold sword. Brothers, this ain't no regular Black Knight of Europe. This is either a king, a duke, or a prince. Now, of course, we don't know who this image is depicting because they're just going to tell you it's Saint Maurice. But for any of you brothers that have knowledge of who this is or who this may be, please don't be afraid to leave it in the comment section. But just look at the image once again. This brother right here is decked the hell out. He's got that medieval drip. We're going to read a little excerpt from the Real History WW. Another black knight / noble of the Holy Roman Empire of Germany, founded in 800 AD by Charlemagne, who was a so-called black man by the way, who is purposely falsely identified as Saint Maurice in order to hide his true identity. Note his medieval clothing and armor and the fact that he is a child. German church, circa 1460. Starting from the left, damaged wooden statue of an unknown black knight, Germany, 1500s, unknown province. In the middle, sandstone statue of an unknown black knight, said to be part of a funerary momentum to Johann von Bothmar. Thus, it may be Johann von Bothmar, Germany, 1592. And all the way to the right, I'm definitely going to probably butcher this word, Pfurcher or Furcher if the P is silent, altar, left wing Germany, 1524. This is another knight found in the Magdeburg Cathedral. Portrait of several German knights, 1520. In order to hide true history, the albinos not only created fake artifacts, i.e. coins, statues, portraits, but they also purposely misidentify real artifacts. In this case, as always, with black knights, they are identified as Saint Maurice. Analyzing this painting, note that the knight in the white on the extreme left has on his arm the cross insignia. Note also that the central figure carries a flag with the same insignia. The cross they carry is the Iron Cross. The Iron Cross is a cross symbol typically in black with a white or silver outline that originated after 1219, when the Kingdom of Jerusalem granted the Teutonic Order, the Order of Brothers of the German House of Saint Mary in Jerusalem, the Black Holy Roman Empire, the right to combine the Teutonic Black Cross placed above the Silver Cross of Jerusalem, which was a variant of the cross patty. But even more specifically, the central figure seems to be flying a Montenegrin flag. Note also that there is a medieval castle with several other black knights in the background, none showing any religious paraphernalia. Clearly then, the Saint Maurice nonsense is just a typical Caucasian lie. And that it is. One more time, brothers. How can all of these black men all be Saint Maurice at the same dang time? This artifact or engraving of a black knight is found in St. Mary's Church. Here's another black knight of the Holy Roman Empire, and of course, they've titled this Saint Maurice. So brothers, in this portrait, this is Edward III, King of England, stands with a drawn sword. Now, didn't we just see an illustrated manuscript of Edward III in the Knight of the Garters? Or Knight of the Garter, I should say. And this is why I keep telling you, brothers, you don't know who the heck you can be looking at, because if we couldn't identify this person, they would have just said it was Saint Maurice. Art Deco rendering of an unknown German knight, location unknown, Annotation beneath the picture roughly translates as remembrance of birthday of Duke Karl Edward of Saxe-Coburg of Gotha, war year 1915. Also, I'm sure a lot of you brothers have seen this image. This is also one of the most famous images they use and say is Saint Maurice. Now, this statue is located at the Magdeburg Cathedral. But with that being said, I'm sure you brothers get the gist of this narrative. I'm not going to go through every single individual image of the Black Knights that I have on my computer because I'll be here all day. I might make a separate part 2 video where I'm just going through the different Black Knights that I've collected on my computer. And besides, at the time of this recording, I'm kind of tired right now. So I think I'm going to end it here. Hopefully this was an edifying lesson for you brothers and sisters, giving all praises to the Most High Yahweh and giving acknowledgement to Hamashiach Yahushai.